Hey guys, David Villa here. Welcome to another episode, a special episode of Auto Dealer Live. First, let me just say this. Thanks for subscribing and listening over the last couple of months. We brought this podcast back due to popular demand. You wanted it, and we're excited. And we've had some tremendous episodes. I think we've had 6 or 7 episodes so far. Today is going to be, it's a brand new episode, hasn't been viewed yet. Here's the deal. A few months ago, it's a special episode, so we're going to pause from our regular scheduled look program, and we're gonna go into an event that we just recently attended with a lot of dealers. Mikey and I went in, and we pulled hours of content. Our editor literally took hours of content, narrowed it down to the 20 minutes plus you're gonna see here. And look, we threw everything, including the kitchen sink, out there as a topic, what's going on over the last year, 2 years, and currently in the auto business, how to bounce back from it. And we had some really, really great experts on to talk about this. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a regular looking episode with 2 new dealers. But look, you're gonna get a chance to hear from Brad Wise, Josh Mitchell, Paul Sansone Jr., Trent Cannon, who is with Ford. Trent's an awesome person. And then the president of the NADA Academy, Michael Hayes. So these 5 gentlemen are on this episode. You're gonna love it. Check it out. Let me know what you think. All right, guys, welcome to Auto Dealer Live. We're here, Mikey and I, with a couple guys, and we're going to rotate some in here in a little bit, but we're going to be talking about drive success and what we can drive success with that's proven, and I think that, well, we'll get into that. I'll save it. Strategies that are proven. And the reason why I'm even bringing this up, because we've gone through some seasons, we've gone through some changes, we've talked to dealers. I talk to dealers every day, and you hear all types of things from one end of the spectrum. So I thought, what better way than to have a couple of very successful veterans that are still killing it here. And we have Josh Mitchell at Seguin Chevy in Texas. How about that? And we have Mr. Brad Wise with Furman Chevy Mazda here in Tampa. I'm gonna throw it to you, man. So inventory, no inventory, right? I mean, you have used car prices dropping, salesmen making a lot of money. This whole thing we've gone through, man, it's just been like a literal roller coaster. I mean, that's the best way I can describe it, up and down. Nobody really could predict anything. No. Everyone was wrong. So how do you drive success? What kind of strategies do we need? Is it really that different? Are you still clinging to some things that you've always done that have gotten you through?
Yeah, you're right. The last 2 years of you couldn't have dreamed of a better scenario of low expense and high margin and profitable enterprises that we've all enjoyed. And 6-8 months ago, we knew this was going to come to an end or have some sort of normalcy. And to answer your question, David, it's hunger. Sales is the lifeblood of any business, and without hunger, you've got nothing. You can have the best inventory, the best advertising, best facility. It's a lot like a sports team. If you don't have the best players that are hungry to win, none of the other stuff really matters, which is why I don't spend a lot of time on the things that don't matter and spend time on making sure that sales team, meaning in service and in sales, has that hunger. And the way that you do that is through just self-development training, meetings every morning, getting into the hearts and minds of your people and getting them to understand that your worst day is someone's dream, and getting them to be addicted to progress. Because if there's one thing that makes us happy as human beings is progress. So I'm really I'm like a progress pusher.
Okay. So Josh, same question, man. Obviously we agree with that. And I think that even Grant said earlier, we were talking about AI. He said, listen, you can have everything, but if you don't have somebody that's willing to use it, and really when it comes down to it, it doesn't really matter. But I mean, what are some other strategies, some things that let me ask you this. Have you found yourself going back to some of the basics?
Oh, yes.
Okay, talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you looked at what happened, and we made a lot of money, and salesmen made a lot of money, but we all knew it was going to come to a change. We didn't know when, and it was just like a light bulb just blew out. It was there. And we had COVID babies. That's what we call them, COVID babies. They're people who came into the industry who really didn't know how the car business actually was.
Yeah.
And to get them to go back to the basics, learning how to do the right walk around, how to present a pencil, how to do a meet and greet, all those things. You just had to think about going back to the basics and making it simple. Because a lot of these people they don't know about a negotiation. Because it was like, you have the car, it's white, I don't want white, but you have that car and I want to buy it. And it was that easy. And just like a flip of a switch, it was not that easy anymore. And so we really had to go back to the basics and training them on the meet and greet, on the product selection, on the demo, all those things that just sound dumb now. Like we should have already been doing this, but a lot of sales managers weren't ready for this either.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's what we blamed all of the salesmen on. They weren't ready for negotiations, but most sales managers weren't ready either.
Yeah. You know, something that's interesting too along those lines is, you know, I'm thinking there were probably a lot of new things that you learned from that experience of the past couple of years. So I'm wondering, are there any new things that you are doing that you kept doing because you found like, wow, I discovered something in this time that maybe I hadn't been doing before and it's working great and I'm going to keep doing it? Is there anything like that?
I mean, you know, me being the BDC guy, you know, that's always going to be the life of the dealership for anywhere that I ever go. And really honing in, like we had internet sales and BDC, kind of the hybrid type situation. And coming out of it, we went strictly BDC. Now we still have salespeople answering leads to a certain degree, but we went strictly BDC to make sure that we could provide a little bit better experience, give more on-time responses to the customers, because salespeople out there selling cars, they can't actually answer leads. And so it's almost going back to in time in a way, because you know we went back to that BDC style.
So yeah, so it was going back to the basics, but you actually found out that it was something. Sometimes going back to the basics is discovering something new to some people. I mean, let me ask you this: you know, talking about personnel, are there some people that you might are not going to make it really? And maybe speak for other dealerships. I know you have buddies and things like that are in the car business, but are there some people that just that unfortunately can't really pull out of that season where they were fat and happy? I'm driving the gravy train here, and then maybe they're not just really going to make it through that portal into these times where you got to kind of go back and make some stuff happen.
Well, it's human nature to, if your toys have been taken away from you, especially the COVID babies like you mentioned, if it was so easy and they were making, basically everything was a triple. Everyone's making 3 times as much, including the dealer, the salespeople, than they were prior. So when you pull the rug under that, immediately that's a shock to the system. They've built their budgets and their lifestyle to a certain point, and now they're stuck with stress. And when your sales staff has stress, it's in their eyes. The customers, the guests, they feel it, and it just they put their nose in the air at a mini deal. And that's what I'm talking about, the hunger part of it. That's why you got to have people on the floor where average wages or above average wages, 80, 90 grand is a lot of money. And people who were making 80, 90 and now they're making 250, now it's back to 80, 90, that isn't going to work. Those people got to go. Yeah. I mean, it's just the reality of it. Just like when there was a mass exodus of the car business during the mortgage meltdown, everybody went to refinance mortgages, right? So it's kind of a cleansing of that. So in other words, people where if 80, 90 is, if we're talking about salespeople or service advisors, if 80, 90 is a typical wage, you need to find people who are used to making 40, 50, who are dynamic people with a personality second to none, who are moldable, who are good people, who aren't energy vampires. Because the old dogs that you have that are still longing for the old days, that is, at least for me, that's not going to work in our store.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point, too, talking about leadership. I know you touched on that a few times with meetings and talking about the importance of developing people. I mean, has that shifted for you guys? Are you guys doing the same things, or are there some new things you've learned? Because I know you mentioned there's some fresh blood in the industry, some new people maybe that weren't working in the industry before a lot of these changes. So, and then if so, if they're different, what are some different things that maybe you've had to learn to address with this new group of people, or is it kind of the same thing?
Well, I think it's, one of the big things is that money, in some aspects, money's not important to a lot of these people. Mm-hmm. And so the time away from the dealership, the not working 65, 70, 80 hours a week, not being able to take off and take vacation time and those types of things, I think that's something that we've brought into the industry. That we've learned that there's people that, yes, they're driven by a little bit of money, but they're also driven by time off and time with their family and doing things that they want to do. And for the auto industry, that's unheard of. You live, breathe, die, eat, sleep, and ultimately die at the dealership. That's what you do. And to a different breed of salesperson, that's not what they want to do. They want to work, and they will work their ass off for you. They will. But they also really want that time off to go spend the money that they've made, to enjoy their family, to have hobbies. And so I think for us as an industry, we have to find that balance, because there's a lot of people that are good quality employees that want to just put that time in and they want to take off.
Sure.
And yes, you have to have accountability and they have to be able to push and be at certain numbers, but if they are, don't worry about them. Let them do what they need to do. And obviously there's some boundaries that you have to set, but you shouldn't have to, you can't kill them. You can't tell them that 70 hours a week, sell 50, 60, 70 cars for me, and then you can do whatever you want eventually may be possible. You have to allow them to have that time. And I think that for us as an industry is a shift where, because most of the time it's like that's unheard of. You don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. So we have Paul Sansone, Junior. Paul, multi-point store. You've been listening to the conversation. We're just bringing you right on in as well. We're talking about strategies that drive success today. We've heard a little bit about maybe going back to the basics, doubling down on some of the things that we maybe stopped doing. What do you have to weigh in on? I know you're going to always bring some great color and commentation into the discussion. So.
Well, hopefully. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Well, the fact is, if you think about it, you either have to expand your market in other areas. One of the areas that I've expanded my market is actually in the Hispanic area, and many dealers have an emerging Hispanic market. We've been able to increase our Hispanic business threefold over the last few years, and a dealer has to be intentional. If you're going to try to expand any ethnic market, you have to be intentional in doing so, meaning that focus on hiring Hispanic salesmen, BDC, service advisors. For me, that was very important, is having a complete breadth of comfort level for someone in that community. Additionally, we even have a Sansone Jr. Latino site that highlights my Hispanic salesmen to that community, so it even makes it more of a welcoming experience. So one of the things that we went after was trying to expand in different markets, whether that be subprime, whether that be Hispanic. So that was how we're forging our way to different venues. The other thing that I think is very different, we talked about the BDC before. I'm doing something this month. I consider my son PS3 to be one of my best general sales managers. I'm actually putting him in the BDC as a desking manager in the BDC. If you think about that role, and I have a very qualified BDC manager, but the BDC role years ago was sell the appointment, train your staff to sell the appointment. Now, dealers are very free of giving information, numbers out to customers. So if you're giving out the numbers, there's a responsibility that goes along with that, and a skill set that my BDC manager has never been trained at. She's never desked a deal, worked credit customers, etc. So I have the latitude this month of an extra manager. So I'm putting my son in the BDC, and he's willingly going in and actively going to desk deals out of the BDC. It's like, Dad, if we're giving out numbers, let's make sure we're giving out the right numbers, make sure
That's
we're
good.
presenting it in the proper phase. So I'll let you know in 30 days how that one works out.
But what's interesting about that, and even what Brad said earlier, it sounds like, adaptability is a pretty key, big picture, 30,000 square foot skill that's been developed over the past few years. I mean, from a top level leadership perspective all the way down to the salesperson and everyone in between.
That's good stuff. So we got BDC desk manager. I think that's a great strategy. And, it's interesting because it goes right along with going back to the basics anyway, because you created something that wasn't there, but you filled a void. But what you really did is you just realized that society is evolving into an internet, society. I mean, at least from the touch point of the initial touch. I mean, we do everything online.
Again, if you think about it, the conversation of your presence is your best leverage was the old ways of doing business. If you don't give a consumer price information, payment information over the phone, they're just going to call another dealer, whether it be online. So you just need a different skill set to what was previously asked of that position before. 90% or more of all engagement starts in the internet. How do you not have your best people in the internet. And again, I've been talking about this for years. No, there is not a salesman on my floor that has not spent real quality time in the BDC. We called it BDC Boot Camp. So the evolution of that is now the desking of it, because we are so freely giving information out that I want my best skilled person, because not everybody that asks for what's your best price really wants your best price.
Yeah,
That's true.
You know, it's what trim level are you looking for? There's qualifying questions that we know gets there. The consumer asks what's your best price because they think that's the way I need to buy a car. But that's not necessarily what they're looking for. They're looking for quality information, which is why I have somebody in the BDC that I feel will be able to answer those questions properly.
That's good.
Makes sense.
Trent Cannon with Ford Direct. Thanks for joining us. We brought you in over here too, and you've been listening. Want to bring you in on anything really you want to comment that we talked about, but also I know you've come from the retail side as well on the dealer level. You were at the Clay Cooley organization for a while, so you've been in the business on both sides. So weigh in on that. Anything you've heard so far, maybe, and also some strategies that you've viewed, even from the point of view that you have now.
Well, I appreciate that. First of all, I just realized my ears are not made for headphones. That's number one. One thing I'll say about the BDC, I think the biggest mistake that dealers have made with BDC is they've closed off the BDC. You know, you put the BDC, it's usually girls, okay? I've run a couple BDCs in my day, right? It's usually women, and we put them in, lock them in like the closet. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Lock them in the closet, and then we can't see them. And they don't have any information. They don't have any training on they don't have any training on cars. They don't have any sense of what's going on. Mm-hmm. And Vroom and Carvana are just BDCs.
Yeah.
You know, and they're selling, in Carvana's case, 100,000 cars a quarter, and it's just a BDC that is trained well to do everything A to Z. And a lot of dealers can learn from that.
That's good.
That's an
I
interesting
don't know, Paul.
point.
I don't know. What do you you got a I disagree look on your face, or you got something?
Yeah. Well, I always have a comment on things. But anyway, in my mind, the BDC is an extension of the dealership. My salesmen know the BDC and them are a flowing, working relationship. And in fact, Saturday's sales meeting, because we were having our normal bitch session that happens every now and then at a dealership, was why am I not getting this lead? Why am I not getting that lead? And the fact of the matter is, with information, and I looked at the salesman that was complaining. I said, look, if you have somebody that's delivering at a 15% lead rate and you have somebody delivering at a 3% lead rate, who are you going to be giving the leads to? And obviously it's the 15%. That today for me is where I am putting so much focus, attention, and energy on building up, and I don't even call it the BDC, it's the doorway to my dealership. Yeah, it's not even a BDC anymore. These people, the BDC reps, to your point, have to be trained as salesmen. My salesmen have to be trained as BDC reps. It's one relationship because the conversation has to be smooth from the initial interaction with your dealership to when the customer eventually buys a car. The level that I'm bringing in is the skill set of actually desking a deal. If you're going to give numbers, the natural progression to me is if you're going to give numbers, give the right numbers, do it in the proper fashion that gets the best results. And the only way that I know how to do that is to put my best person in there, which is what I'm doing.
I think you're looking, Trent, from the standpoint too, thanks Paul, from the standpoint of how can we as manufacturers, and you obviously Ford, how can we really take market share and really kind of own what someone else is doing because we can do it better? I kind of hear it from that perspective. Is that where you're going with that?
Kinda. I got to back up one thing that Paul said.
Okay.
There's one thing that dealers make the mistake of, and everybody is listening. Stop measuring close rate. And I know that sounds crazy, okay? But close rate, if you measure close rate, you're not focused on volume. And so, because there are so many different avenues of social media and different ways that customers connect with you, close rates are all over the place. Inventory problems that are still arise, they affect close rate. So there are multiple different reasons why somebody's closing at 15% as opposed to closing at 6%. Okay. The other thing I tell dealers, and Paul? Let me ask you, what should a close rate be?
Again, our basic target is anywhere 12% is pretty much where we're looking to try to get to. I'm not there, but 10 to 12% is pretty much customary from what I've known.
And almost everybody I talk to, they're going to say 10%, around 10%. Luxury dealers may say 12 to 15. But the true close rate of leads, and I might get in trouble for saying this, is 6.9%. And it's been like that for a long time. Now, if you're a Honda dealer, if you are a luxury Lexus store, it's often higher, okay? But when you take out like your average Chevy store, your average, especially Nissan, Kia store, they close around 6%. And so we've told ourselves, and it's a lie that's been told for too long, that everybody should close at 10%. And in fact, that's going to get lower as you add in social media, as you add in TikTok, as you add in Facebook leads and so forth. Your lead volume and your close rates are going to change, and we have to adjust that. But to your point on market share, if you want to grow market share, I think you do it through social media. I think there's no better place, and that what that close rate is and what that engagement rate is, we still don't know.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And speaking of that, we're bringing Michael Hayes, director of NADA Academy, on. Michael, your keynote was awesome this morning. Kind of maybe bringing this into that discussion where you started talking about, and we talked about COVID babies earlier. We talked about that last couple of years, but you kind of shown where, there's a significant change, right, that's happening over the last year and a half, 2 years even, where, the landscape is changing, profits are changing. And you touch on that a little bit and tie that into maybe where you see strategies that the dealers that are successful right now are utilizing in 2023 or need to utilize.
Well, we think about all the things that we've been hearing, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the situation we were talking about with BDCs and things like that too. And I happen to agree that close rate is something you measure just to look at in trend. But the close rate is the result of behaviors that actually happen, and maybe it's more important to measure the behaviors that get there. We always talk about there's really three things that have to happen before you get to a close. The first one is, do I have engagement? Maybe we need to measure, of the unique leads that we have, we measure what percent actually engaged, generated by, okay, what's the feedback? They ask a question, we answer the question, now we ask them one and they answer the question, great, we have engagement. And then once we have somebody engaged, now we've earned the right to ask them to make an appointment, or to show them an appointment, whatever the case may be. We measure the incidents, how many appointments we get, and then most importantly, how many appointments show. But if I built that base, kind of like a pyramid, right? If I built that base, then the closing rate when they actually show up at the dealership is really high because I've done all the proper behaviors. So I'd argue maybe measuring the behaviors, the close rate is going to take care of itself. So I think the big thing is what kinds of opportunities are we doing at stores to increase engagement, then to increase all the things that follow after.
Yeah, here's what I love about this industry as we wrap this up, and with this, because here's the thing, it's right, we're talking about strategies that drive success right now. You heard everything as we brought on, I think, close to 10 people. You heard everything from one end of the spectrum to the other. And what I love about this industry is there's always ideas. And that's really what it's all about, right? Everybody, even if you heard a piece of that and you go, I'm not going to do that at my store, but it made me think about something else. Right. And it gave me that idea. And that's really where iron sharpens iron, right? And this industry has a lot of that type of person and people in it. So,
guys, wasn't that an awesome episode? Thanks so much for tuning in with us this whole time. We had a huge lineup of guests, and I really hope you like them. Why don't you drop in the comments and let us know what you thought. If you'd like to see somebody else on the show in the future, let us know. Give us your thoughts on the show, and most importantly, make sure to like and subscribe. Click on that bell to make sure you get every notification as soon as we drop the newest episode. And thanks again. We'll see you next week.